Hello again and welcome to Top of Mind Florida.
I'm Brian Crowley.
And I'm Michael Williams, and our guest today, Richard Hujber, longtime immigration attorney. He's worked both sides of that aisle as an attorney for the government, now in private practice. And on immigration, where do we begin? On the immigration and deportation debates raging in Florida elsewhere, where are we?
We are in a really fascinating time, a time I've never seen in 30 years, frankly. Spent my first 5-6 years in the federal government. Last 20 plus years, nearly 25 years in private practice, and it's never been like this. It's quite frightening for a lot of my clients. It's really treacherous and just challenging for my clients. And so it's clients getting picked up at a high rate, a lot of racial profiling going on, targeting work vans, work trucks, raids, workplace raids. You tell your clients to keep an eye out, to be smart, to not drive without a driver's license, to avoid certain areas, et cetera. It's a challenging time. It really is. I mean, there's just such a huge amount of detentions now going on, a lot of arrests that you didn't think would take place because the whole policy was supposed to be the worst of the worst. But in that process of getting the worst from the worst, they're rounding up other people as well.
Is part of the issue the fact that they have a quota for how many people they need to remove every day, as opposed to just going after the worst of the worst?
For sure. I mean, there was a time when it wasn't that way. When I started, there were certainly no quotas, and there wasn't necessarily a for-profit system, although they may have rented space here and there from certain facilities. It wasn't like this. There's GEO, there's all these big companies making big money off of these kind of contracts with the government. And so there are quotas, there are bonuses. They get end of the year fiscal bonuses. They get bonuses during the fiscal year that we or may not, come across in FOIA results that we're doing. But it's certainly a challenging time for that reason, because at the end of the day, there is plenty of the worst to go get. And frankly, I see them. I know them. I'm a former government attorney again, so I know exactly what we should be doing and who we should be targeting. But along the way, they're also grabbing a lot of really good, hardworking people and making it very challenging to even get them out, because it's really hard to get a bond for people that are really decent, hardworking people with no criminal record. They're really hard to get them out now.
And this is where some people will jump in. Perhaps some of you watching say, if they're here illegally, too bad, they got to go. What do you say to that?
I mean, it just depends. I have no problem, again, even with the recent entrants. I think under the prior administration, there was such an overwhelming just crossing of the border, paroles that were handed out. There was just millions and millions of people that were let in under Joe Biden and his administration. And that's just the flat-out truth. That's really what happened. And so what's going on now, I actually blame quite a bit on that administration in terms of opening the floodgates, both at the border and through the airports. Parole programs that came out that let people come in legally that then were revoked under this administration, so now they're automatically here illegally. So it depends on what is, the definition of illegal. I hate to say it like that, but there are a lot of people in different stages where they've been here 15, 20 years, American children, paying their taxes, no criminal record. Well, there's something called cancellation of removal for those people, and I do a lot of those cases where you can show an immigration judge, you've been here 20 plus years, 3 or 4 American kids, maybe one has issues, autism, cancer, something horrific like that, from a third world country, where you can show to a judge the hardship that those children will face when someone like that, who has no criminal record, again, is paying taxes, a good person in our society and community, should have that opportunity. But the recent entrants, where so many were seeking asylum but did not really have an asylum case, those are a problem for me, because there are plenty of people that do have good cases that are waiting for years and have waited for years to have their cases heard, but they're not getting heard because they got flooded with all these cases that really are not even marginal cases. They're frankly somewhat frivolous cases. So I want to be able to focus on cases where, criminal records for sure, even a final order deportation. A lot of people know. Some don't, but a lot of people know they have a final order deportation. There needs to be a consequence. When I first started doing this, my mom used to ask me, isn't it horrible to see them getting dragged out by their ear from the immigration court when they lose a case? And I said, I never saw it happen once, unless I was at Chrome or in a detention facility. Miami downtown, there's no one getting usually grabbed. Under this administration, there's real consequences after years of these kind of things being ignored. You would walk out, not even change your address, after a judge ordered your removal, and then stay for years and years later. And now an administration is actually taking this seriously, picking people up to have a final order removal and deporting them.
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you cross the border illegally and you come to a border control agent and you ask for asylum, that at that moment you're now legal in the sense that you're now in the process of whether or not to get asylum, which, as you know better than I, can take many years. So is it incorrect to call that person illegal if they've asked for asylum?
So there's just a lot of variations to that whole subject matter. In terms of reporting yourself at an actual port of entry to seek asylum, that's one thing. But should there not be a review to see if there's at least some viability to that asylum claim? And if you're coming in between ports of entry because you're trying to abscond or like not necessarily come in the right way in terms of checking in and turning yourself in and seeking asylum the right way, is that someone that we really want to have coming into this country?
But are they
Because there's
legal at that moment if they've
not
asked
necessarily.
for asylum?
They do get a work permit after 5 months that the asylum application is pending. They are allowed to seek a work permit, which gives you a social, gives you a driver's license, gives you all these things that people that have been here for 20 plus years that have American children have never had. So those are the clients that come to me and say, how is it under Biden that someone that just came here 5 months ago has already got a work permit and a social and a license? And at the end of the day, between you and I, these people that came to my office in these conditions had no asylum case. What were they coming for? To join family here illegally. The grandparents raised them. A lot of them were younger kids, older teenagers at this point. The grandparents had enough of them in Central America and certain countries and sent them here to reunite with family, but the family's not even here legally. So while you have family here legal, trying to seek and bring people here legally, waiting for many years to do it the right way, you have this kind of almost like a backdoor amnesty, as Trump would say, where people are being allowed in based on what seems, at least for a lot of people, to be frivolous asylum cases to just reunify with family that are here illegally as well.
But I have to come back to where we were. There will be a good segment of those watching Top of Mind Florida will say, well, it was an abuse system, and this is the remedy, however harsh it may seem to some. What do you say to that hardline point of view?
I agree with them. I actually agree with them in terms of, this prior administration, what they did was too far. It went way too far, and this is the result.
Where do you begin to disagree with them in that argument?
When you talk about people in a case-by-case basis that have been here so long, they're getting caught in this huge dragnet of looking for the worst here 15, 20 years or more. I've had clients for 25, 30 years.
Working, paying taxes. Right?
Yes, using a TIN number, which is the right thing to do. If you
TIN
can't,
number.
is an identification number, a taxpayer identification number, where you can at least declare your income, do the right thing in terms of letting the government know, this is what I'm making, take your share of this. Because even if you don't have that work permit or that Social Security, at least the TIN number allows you to do that. And they're trying to do the right things. They have American kids. They're paying taxes, no criminal record. It's just when you have 20 plus million, how do you get to them all? You can't. If you could do 1 million a year in terms of deportations, that's like the highest number they've ever done. I mean, I'm not talking about at the border, which are the padding of the numbers under other administrations. I'm talking about actual interior enforcement. To deport more than 1 million a year is very difficult. So how do you get to 20? And Trump was saying there's 20 just allowed in under Biden. There's another 11, 12 million here before that, allegedly. No one knows the real numbers, but there's a certain limited context here or resources here where you can only do so much when it comes to this issue. So focus on who really deserves to get deported right away, because those are not really difficult cases. But then have a case-by-case analysis of the other ones, because you can't just grab them and put them under the same swoop and just say goodbye to those people, in my opinion. They need to have some consideration on a case-by-case basis.
But of those many millions that you're talking
Yeah.
about, we don't have enough judges
Correct.
to, even before all of this,
Yeah.
there was a shortage of administrative judges to handle,
Yeah.
or immigration judges to
Right.
handle all of these cases. So you're talking about millions of people who are not bad, they're just hard workers, but they're not here legally, and the only way to get there is through this administrative
Right.
judge process.
Right. Well, it's funny because I interviewed for that job
How do you do
twice.
it?
I interviewed under Obama and then I interviewed under Trump, and the difference, the dichotomy and how that interview went to become an immigration judge was fascinating to me. That's why I did it. But it's a good point. There's only so many judges that can only hear so many cases. But for example, those people that have been here more than 10 years, American children that will suffer hardship without them, I couldn't even get these people to be able to go to court to present their cases because the government say, we're overwhelmed. We got millions of cases. That's not priority for us. We don't want these people in court. So those people that actually want to fix their status under the law, a relief that exists under the law for decades, we're being told, don't come here. We're trying to focus on these other cases. And then Biden, of course, flooded the system with so many millions more. So should they have their chance? If there's something in the law that someone does qualify to seek, I think they should have that opportunity. But you're right, there's limited resources and judges.
There's a couple I've been told about that they've been here 20. She's been here 20 years illegally. She married an American man. They have a child. Now I'm reading stories about people showing up in court or
Yeah.
somewhere to try
Picking
to
them
get
up.
into the process and they get picked up.
Yeah.
What would, you tell,
Meritorious.
what would you tell that woman? She's terrified.
Every
from what I
case
gather.
has its own characteristics and idiosyncrasies, if I could say. In other words, how did she come? Did she come legally with a visa? That should be a pretty straightforward marriage case, especially if they have a child together. I mean, what better evidence of a bona fide marriage than having a kid together? But if she came illegally, or if she has a final order of deportation, I've met clients almost daily that don't even know they have an order of deportation because it was sent out to an address of a notario in the community that used the P.O. box, doesn't want to tell the person that my work that I did in your case resulted in a hearing that you didn't go to that resulted in an absentia order of removal or deportation against you. And then you show up to a USCIS office or to a court, of course you're getting picked up because they consider you to be a fugitive with a warrant for your arrest and for your removal.
Do you think this has gone from a necessary crackdown in many ways to cruel?
In certain scenarios, I think so. I can just picture the young man at the Maya Community Center walking outside and getting caught on video, walking the sidewalk, and a van pulls in, pulls up, and he gets grabbed. I mean, this was something a few months ago that it was on social media. You know, until there's a rhyme or a reason, an explanation provided by ICE, and their policy is always confidentiality and privacy, and they don't want to say, I don't think that's proper. I think it really harms the community to not say, this person had an order of removal. This person had a criminal record. This person is a fugitive, a bench warrant. You need to at least provide something to say, we grabbed this guy in this kind of a manner, videotape for the whole world to see and on social media to cause all this fear and concern. At least lay the reasoning for it. But they always claim privacy and confidentiality, don't explain it, and it causes a lot of this kind of concern.
It's been a hot button, political hot potatoes. Last major reform was 1986 during the Reagan administration. What are the systemic fixes? You used to be a guest of mine frequently on my old public affairs broadcast that Brian and I worked on. What are the systemic fixes that you think we need? Because this always ebbs and flows, and right now we're at a certain point in this cycle that we've already described. What are your thoughts?
I think we have a nearly $40 trillion deficit or debt that is owed. And for a lot of the people that could potentially legalize their status, if you said to them, pay a $5,000 or even a $10,000 penalty to be able to fix your status, passing background checks, vetting, overdue taxes, back taxes if necessary, et cetera, that would be a huge moneymaker for the federal government because you're talking about millions of people. I think the border is now essentially secure. I mean, Trump is bragging like crazy about not one person being let in over the course of months. True or not, I think the border has now finally reached a point where it's secure, the wall's being built, the wall's extending and expanding. So I think part of the process is saying we can now adjust to and at least consider what's going on within the interior of these millions of people that are here without status, knowing full well that at least now the border is secure, because that was always the Republicans' concern. How do we go about legalizing people when the back door is still open and they're still coming in? So as we have a border now that seems to be secure, if we hit them with whatever penalty, with other requirements too, learning English, paying their taxes, et cetera, that's a way in which we could hit the deficit or the debt, which is huge. We have such a huge debt in this country, and make people at least earn that pathway to residence. And that's how this could work for so many people and for the government, for everybody. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
How much?
So, I'm sorry. So Venezuelans, Haitians, some Cubans, and perhaps others who have temporary protection status, they're being told to leave.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
It's tough. The ones that already have an order of removal, because they, let's say, sought asylum and lost, they're going. The ones that do not, they're going to be put in that process. It's going to take potentially years, so they'll at least have their case heard, their due process rights hopefully respected, and present their cases. But yeah, I've got clients that already have a final order of removal. A Haitian that comes to my mind just off the top of my head. I mean, he just was so mistreated. He applied for asylum, and an immigration judge just completely ripped him to shreds. And I finally, because TPS came out, was able to reopen his
status.
Yes. He was not even going to be eligible for that because the judge made this crazy determination that his asylum case was frivolous based on a bunch of nothing. I mean, it was just crazy what I read in that transcript. I didn't represent him, but I took it up on appeal. And so they finally did say this was not a frivolous asylum case. You're eligible for TPS. Now he's here 15, 20 years, American children, et cetera.
Working.
What's going to happen to working
Paying
wife?
taxes?
And we're going to remove this guy now? I mean, these are the tough scenarios.
If there's an executive order removing TPS from,
Right.
then they have to leave tomorrow, right?
Well, the ones that have a final order, the ones that do not, have the right to go through that process.
they?
So hopefully they will be allowed to do so. But if you already have a final order from years before, during the course of TPS, sometimes you still had a case proceeding in immigration court, those will go. If you've got a final order of removal under Trump, they're grabbing those people. They're priority.
How can you send people back to Venezuela when, on the other hand, the administration's arguing that we need to get rid of the person in power because of the grievous conditions in Venezuela? And are you seeing an outcry beginning among those who are here legally in our immigrant community? What are you seeing there? So 2 questions.
It's a lot. There's let's put it this way. I have a lot of Cuban clients, and the Cuban clients go bananas about the fact that sometimes they come and they are immediately put in all these government benefits. They get the green card within a year and a day, and then they go back to Cuba. And they got the American dollar with them. So they get to live like La Rey, the king in Cuba with the American dollar that they didn't work for. These are taxpayer-funded benefits given to them. Within a year or two, they're going back to Cuba and living like a king in Cuba. I mean, what is the logic of that? You're supposed to have fled because of communism, and there's this huge Cuban Adjustment Act that's been used for decades to get these people green cards, and then they go back. And Cuban Americans are upset about that. There are politicians, Cuban Americans, who say, we can't continue this. It cannot last. There is a certain window of opportunity. I'm Hungarian. There's a Hungarian Adjustment Act, basically. Same like the Cuban Adjustment Act, same thing. Communism, 1956 revolution. My parents were involved. My parents fled. It took them 3 years to come here, 1959. My dad came first. Why? Because he had to work 3 jobs for a full year to show an income to bring my mother. That doesn't exist anymore. They come, job, no job, support, no support. They are coming. And I think some of those things really need to be looked at again. If you look at Minnesota now and the Somali situation there, we could look at Hialeah because it's in our own backyard. A lot of the same corruption, a lot of the same benefits are being abused and fraud and stuff like that going on. We need to look at those issues in a much more careful and serious way because Americans are getting sick of this nonsense. And I don't blame them.
I hear you kind of waxing back and forth a bit, and I could see somebody watching this saying you sound as much as an advocate for this crackdown because of abuses as you do somebody who's speaking out against what you see as the cruel abuses.
I used to joke.
You're torn.
I used to joke at the interviews to become a judge that I'm the perfect judge. I'm the son of immigrants, but I'm a former government attorney. I worked on top secret clearance cases before 9/11 happened. I had a client that came in at the same time in the same place that Mohammed Atta came in. She was Mexican. She came in. She had come many, many times with a tourist visa without any problems. For whatever reason, this time when she came in, they handcuffed her to a chair and started interrogating her about what she's doing here. She had an American sister and would come and take care of her American nephew and niece. And they said at some point, you can't come anymore. They canceled her visa, and they're about to put her back on a plane. She started to cry. Why? Because she didn't have any money. She didn't even have a return ticket. She had no one meeting her at the airport, and she was scared. Family reaches out to me after hours and hours of her sitting in this room handcuffed to a chair and said, what's going on? I get involved. That same week, Mohammed Atta came in, the terrorist. They didn't do this to him. He admitted to flying planes. He admitted to overstaying his visa before. He admitted to all kinds of things, but because he looked like money from the Middle East, they let that piece of garbage into our country. And this is what he did on 9/11. You look at that dichotomy and what that woman went through, because she was then taken to jail, Turner Knight Facility, TGK in Miami, spent weeks there, suffered horrific abuse. A woman that had never had a man in her life, was innocent as it can be, was suffering horrific abuse for what? Because some officer decided that her taking care of her own nephew and niece, something she had done for years, coming here back and forth legally, not work, was considered work and in violation of her visitor visa. And she suffered in horrific ways because of it. I would tell the judge in her case, Judge, she came in at the same airport as Mohammed Atta. This is what we did to her. Why didn't we do that to him? What sense did that make? As she suffered in TGK. And for years later, it was the most horrific case. I was only a lawyer 5 years. This is almost 25 years ago, the spring of 2001. And I still think about her today because that's the dichotomy. You can't see this without looking at both sides. And I'm the son of immigrants. I speak Spanish. I speak Hungarian because my parents are Hungarian. But I'm also a former government attorney, and we need borders. We need sovereignty. We need to enforce the laws and not let our system be a joke because once it is, there's no turning back.
What do you think about Alligator Alcatraz?
I have clients there, so I do virtual visits with them. There was a time at the beginning where I said, turn the camera, let me see what's going on. And I guess I got in trouble because all of a sudden they blurred the cameras. So I would see exactly how it was described. I mean, in terms of the cages, the sink with the toilet, I mean, it's all like in one area. I think there becomes a necessity to have people taken into custody and opening of places, I guess, kind of like Alcatraz. But there are so many other different tools and resources that we could be using. ankle monitors, let them post a bond, a significant bond, a bond they can't really afford to lose if they don't show up and get, do all the terms and conditions that the government places on them. There are many other ways besides opening up a place like that. So while I understand the reasoning behind it, I think there's so many other options and remedies that could exist if they just thought it through and not just grabbed the political headlines and did something so quickly and rashly the way they choose to do things.
You also made a reference to geo.
Yeah.
And how are private companies doing with all of this?
They're making a fortune. Government contracts, big business. And when it comes to quotas and having to house people, they're making a fortune and billions. And so you could see it coming. A lot of people just grabbing that stock, buying those, into those companies that when you knew that the government was going to hand out those kind of contracts, this was going to be a big moneymaker for a lot of people.
But are they doing a good job?
Depends on the location. I mean, I deal with clients, immigration is federal all around the country. So I can, being licensed in Florida, represent clients in California, Imperial, in a place called Jena, Louisiana, Oakdale, Louisiana, along the border in Texas. Every facility is different. Baker County, in northeast Georgia, Jacksonville, I hear is pretty horrific. Alcatraz, you hear all the horror stories. Chrome becomes really bad. When they overcrowd Chrome, it becomes a nightmare for a lot of my clients.
Is it overcrowded now?
It's been. They opened a tent at one point on the parking lot and had people staying there overnight in a tent without air conditioning, without a bathroom. It was horrific, but I think they've kind of stopped that. It has to be something where people express their outrage for them to realize we can't go this far. We got other space somewhere else. Let's open space somewhere else. Or not even detain the people that don't need to be detained, because I've got clients that should not be detained. Give them a bond. Put them on an ankle monitor, use some common sense.
A lot of these people have been vital workers in the Florida economy. People like their lawns cut. They like to have a roof put on, at least at a hopefully somewhat reasonable price, and a lot of other work. What's it doing to the economy? What's it likely to continue to do?
It's starting, but
How do you mean?
you could sense that people are no longer showing up to work when they know that they're in risk. When you're in a work van and you're being pulled over, it's racial profiling. It's happening. They target these work trucks, work vans. You got a trailer with a lawn equipment in the back, you're being stopped. And whether it's because of an issue with your commercial license and they want to check you out, or you got a report to actually have something like that updated, like a driver's license, or just a random traffic stop, they're being targeted. And so it's affecting this industry significantly. But my own landscaper at my office building came to me one day and he said, Jefe, this is someone I've barely known over the years because he shows up so early to do the work. He says when he comes in around 5 a.m, starts the lawnmower, he can't work because people were like passed out in my parking lot apparently from some drunken stupor, some whatever drugs that they were doing, and they would start wanting to fight him. I had to start posting signs around my office building, no soliciting, no staying, no, and so this is a hardworking immigrant. The people out there were American. And so the hardworking immigrant just wants to get a day's job done. He's got 10 other projects that same morning to do. He wants to hit my office, do the landscaping work, go to the next project. But the ones that were sitting there doing nothing, on drugs, passed out, drunk, who knows what, were trying to fight him, verbally assault him, and even physically fight him to the point where he had to reach out to me and say, what the hell am I supposed to do here to get my work done? This is an immigrant doing work that a lot of people would say Americans maybe would not. And that's a perfect example to me because it's horrible. Let the guy do his work. We have problems. We got to really address these problems because at the end of the day, we got to focus on what matters and priorities and prioritizing who we want to actually, target because a lot of people are being picked up that should not be picked up, in my opinion.
It is a huge topic. I'd love to have you back this year as we kick off this year because it's such a vitally important Florida topic and national topic. Final top-of-mind thoughts we haven't touched on before we let you go.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. It's a midterm election coming up, and we're going to see, in my opinion, how this all is handled politically, what the community sees and senses from a lot of these horror stories that I'm seeing and dealing with in my own office. And, we're going to see, is this something that people still have a hunger for and a desire for, and they're going to continue to elect, and choose to vote in a certain way? Or are they going to have some backlash now and realize that, hey, maybe we're going a little far when it comes to seeking the worst of the worst and getting them deported, but knowing full well that in that dragnet, a lot of really good, decent, hardworking, wonderful people, frankly, because I get to know them and their families in my office, should they also be dragnetted into this? I mean, that's what it is. It's a dragnet. And you've got to, again, to me, I don't think it's that challenging because I did this for years in the government. Look at the cases case by case. A lawyer gets involved, submits to you all this documentary evidence to show what a good person. You do the background check. The first thing they do when they grab someone is a background check. If you can see the guy's been here 25 years with nothing but a traffic ticket, what's the need to actually detain that person at $400 or $500 a day at taxpayer expense? So politically, this is going to be a big year. The next 6, 8, 10 months, if more and more of these stories come out, and what is the public going to, do in terms of their voting patterns now, and if it goes in a different direction, it's going to be interesting to see if the administration starts kind of fine-tuning what they're doing and listening to people that are in the field, and make some adjustments, I would think. Hopefully, we'll see.
Richard Hujber, noted immigration attorney. We appreciate you taking time to be with us on Top of Mind Florida.
It's my pleasure.
Well, he was very interesting. Immigration is a huge issue in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis is one of those who has taken the lead on trying to remove immigrants from Florida. That's why we have Alligator Alcatraz, which is a highly controversial facility. But it's also a reminder, too, that with more openness from the governor and from the federal government, where members of Congress, members of the state legislature, for example, the media could occasionally go into Alligator Alcatraz without notice necessarily, so they see the real thing, what's been cleaned up. You would eliminate a lot of the speculation. If everything is going as smoothly as is being told, and you witness that, then you remove the complaints and everything looks fine, at least about the conditions. There'll always be questions about, who's being removed.
Mm-hmm.
And what he had to say about it, I thought was very interesting.
The personal calculus, the economic calculus, and also the political calculus that he talked about, his thoughts about what way might it influence the 2026 midterms. That'll be something that I know you and I will be looking at throughout the year as well. You've expressed your thoughts and analysis about whether communities where people can vote from these immigrant communities, what will be their reaction at the midterms?
Well,
among others.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of these videos that people are seeing of ICE agents and how they're handling some of the people that are being picked up, and that doesn't ignore the fact that there are some protesters who get out of hand, and they shouldn't either. But you have a certain responsibility if you're a law enforcement officer as to how you conduct yourself. And, I do find it a little concerning that, they're covered from head to toe, often don't have any ID on them. I mean, what stops anybody from dressing themselves up like that and proclaiming themselves to be an ICE agent? We could do things better.
At the same time, I certainly agree with you 100%. At the same time, what I've always liked Richard is he's been on both sides of the aisle. As a prosecutor, he's seen the abuses there. He talked about them. He also sees what he described as the heartbreaking stories. And it's been that dynamic argument that's gone on for decades. And then we always ended up at a spot where the pendulum swings. And we're at a point now with massive enforcement. Many welcome that. Others don't. Many, when the border was, as he argued, largely open, were decrying that. And begs the question, you've been covering politics forever, and so have I. Are we ever going to get to a spot where we have a permanent fix for this immigration situation in this country that seems to swing between polar opposites?
Well, Congress hasn't done anything about immigration laws for over 40 years.
Yeah, 1986.
If they would act, and pass some reasonable laws, there's always been a huge shortage of immigration judges. Mm-hmm. They need to add a lot more. And they need to, as he pointed out, streamline the system in such a way so that, we are going after the worst of the worst and not necessarily harassing people who haven't done anything wrong, have lived here for 20 years, have worked hard, paid taxes, and maybe raised what are now American children. And, handle that on a case-by-case basis without, condemning everybody. I mean, it's just... it's troublesome the direction we're going in with some of this stuff.
We will leave it there as we move into 2026. These are the kind of guests and the kind of topics we'll talk about all year, from thought leaders in the immigration field to political leaders that we're going to line up to people who are playing music and doing fun stuff and making a positive difference in the community, to sports folks, you name it. We've had it all. We'll have it all. We love our new slot as we move into the year. 9 a.m., new episodes every Sunday, dropping audio, and, of course, right here on YouTube. And, of course, then you can see them anytime after that.
Yeah,
so it's good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. We hope you subscribe and share and tell all your friends about us.